back. Again, thank you all for the participation. And I popped into a couple of rooms and there was some interesting conversation going. And of course, if 30 minutes, you think, well, that's a lot of time. And then when 25 minutes goes by, you think, oh my gosh, we only have a few more minutes left. So it's nice that we wish we had more time, but we also don't want to be sitting on our butts a lot. So we had, when we were talking about this part-time faculty committee, we just weren't sure about the timing and how much people can stand, well, actually sit, I should say, just being in more meetings and Zoom. So again, appreciate your attendance and your participation. Let's see, we're coming back. I think it's just about 2:30. Yeah, a couple minutes after. So we have about 20 minutes to reconvene and chat a bit. And I'm actually going to start, I'm going to go in a little different order. I'm going to I don't want there not to be time for Stacey, because so we're going to go in the order of Stacey first, then Deirdre's group, and John and Kristie's, and then John, because we had a glitch or some challenge with the CWA group, and something happened with the breakout room, so we apologize for that. And Stacey,
always the rogue groups that get treated this way. I'm just shocked about this.
The little trains.
Yeah, and I'm sure Stacey, like you said, you've been around for a while and seen it, all kinds of things. But again, my apology, our apologies for that. But I want to start with you, and rather than just have a few minutes, most of you just have about 3 minutes. But let's have Stacey come back on and take the stage, just so we don't have run out of time for you, and you'll have a good 5 minutes at least. And
okay, well, I won't take your 5 minutes, but I did.
Yeah, between you and Laurel, go ahead.
I really I want to end with a question, and it's a serious question, and perhaps it can be dealt with in a different format. But two successes that we've recently had, and it has to do with the pandemic, is that we were able, my negotiating team, and I'm the chief negotiator, John is on it as well, and a woman named Shanna Vella, were able to negotiate with our district a $500 per conversion rate for any class that went from face-to-face onto this net distance ed format. So any associate, if they taught 3 classes, they got $1,500. The other thing that we were able to negotiate was additional amount of money for office hours. And we have a finite amount of money, and they increased it by $50,000 because of the pandemic. So, those were, we were able to do that, and that feels really good. I was waiting for questions, of course, in my room, and because nobody showed up, it didn't happen. So I instead will have a question for you, and that's this. I have been the president of CWA or PFA for 35 years. I've been the chief negotiator. I'm also the chief steward. And as the chief steward, I see a lot of stuff that happens with associate faculty. And one of the things that I'm seeing an incredible increase occurring is student complaints. And the fact that even though we have processes at Butte College that are outlined in the student rights handbook, where they're supposed to first try to talk to the instructor and then either go to the chair or to the dean, et cetera, those processes aren't being followed. And they're just going directly to dean. And unfortunately, deans are now going directly to call the associate and ask for them to bring the union rep. Now, if you get a phone call from your dean saying, Kristie, I want to meet with you, please bring your union rep with you, imagine how that feels. And right now, the Academic Senate on our campus has been visited by a student who wants the system to be even easier for them. They want them to start keeping files on associate faculty so that if there's been a complaint, it can be added to a file to see if there are complaints that are similar. It's like a blacklist. We get SFF, which is the student feedback forms, annually. We get formally evaluated. But I don't know if it's because they're looking at lower enrollments, if they're looking to get rid of, senior associates because we cost them more. But these complaints are coming in far more frequently than I've ever seen them before. And I just throw it out there. Are you seeing any patterns like this on your campus? And I'm done. So maybe another format to have this discussion, because it's concerning.
And Stacey, this is just, you're talking about since the pandemic, since.
No, it started, it's been in the last 3 or 4 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But now it's much easier because they can do it online.
Yeah.
They just write to the dean. And what deans have been doing at our school anyway is sort of acting as scribe for the complainer. So tell me again, how about if we say it this way? They're actually helping the students with their complaints. And John will shake his head, yes, this is true. And Laurel will shake her head, yes, this is true, because it's happening on our campus and they both work there. So, yeah.
I would just like to add that in my particular case, I truly believe that the student was handed information that they would not have normally come across, and were then forwarded over to the Vice President of Student Services, and they were schooled to file a Title IX.
And I represented Laurel against this Title IX. I've represented John. It's just, it just seems like I'm representing people all the time. But I know that isn't what this session is for. I apologize, but I think it's a discussion that the groups ought to have, because it's to me, it's alarming.
Yeah.
Thank you for the time.
Dr. Reinhardt, your name is kind of cut off. So go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us what you're, but you have to unmute yourself. Go down to the left corner there and.
I did it. There we go. Okay. Yeah, Stacey, that's a lot of deans are also apparently just turning it over to HR, and it gets to be a real ordeal. And it's a pressure, especially on a part-time faculty. They may have 1 or 2 classes. They'll say, what's this nonsense? I'm not going to put up with it. But we're also living in a cancer culture. And people all over academia, every level, are being fired for saying the wrong thing that may not be acceptable. And they're just, it's almost like anybody can make that complaint, because they have a difference of opinion. And they can make it sound, and all of a sudden everybody falls down like a bunch of dominoes, and you go right to HR. And it's a societal problem we have right now, that if you have the wrong opinion on something, you're going to be canceled. You might be fired. And academics are being fired all over the country for that very issue.
I have a meeting set up this Monday that includes the HRs, HR, the dean, a full-timer, and the associate I'm going to represent on myself. HR is going to be there. So I already know it's going to be a termination. That's what it is. Yep.
Oh, thank you, Stacey. I'm sorry again about the lack of a full room for you there and time for that. But I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, we're going to move on and get back to a little more our little 3-minute thing here, which goes quickly. So we'll go with Deirdre to report back, or whoever it was that was going to report back for Deirdre. I think it would, I'll leave it up to you, either Deirdre, or I think there was somebody that volunteered to take notes. So it's your on. If I see
So Claire was our note taker, but I can say just briefly that a main issue that came up was the extraordinary extra amount of work that part-time faculty have had to take on since we've been teaching at home. And hopefully this will not be a forever issue, but many of our colleges, probably most of our colleges, don't reimburse us, don't recognize the extra work that's involved, and don't pay for the extra hours that are involved, particularly the prep time for, one session that's synchronous, another session that's asynchronous, maybe in the same week, et cetera. And then also the extra costs that people incur, upgrading their internet, purchasing new routers, purchasing new equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So Claire, I believe you recorded a particular proposal that we wanted to bring back, right? Are you there, Claire?
I'm here. Yes, hang on just a sec. That colleges reimburse part-time faculty for documented expenses incurred for remote teaching. Deirdre, you also added in their hours. So I'm not sure if that's part of the proposal or not. But that there's some kind of reimbursement for expenses and I guess additional time spent teaching, delivering remote education.
Right, and we discussed the fact that this is an issue, of course, for all faculty, whether they're part-time or regular faculty. But someone rightly brought up that part-time faculty are paid a tiny fraction of what the regular salary would be for a full-time professor. And so when people are barely making enough to live on, one person said that she actually, what it cost her to teach with all the extra expenses for remote work was actually more than she made. So the burden falling on the part-time faculty for these expenses is proportionally greater. So that was the impetus behind that request. Claire, was there anything else that came out of our group that you wanted, that you took a note on?
Well, not specifically a proposal, but there was some interest in consolidating our efforts or building a coalition around our efforts so that we're stronger. We have a stronger voice at the state level. And while some people in our group expressed a sense of kind of fractured power, I think if we show up, I think, at legislative events and participate in opportunities, then we can find representation there. I think this meeting is a good example of building coalition, actually, personally.
Yeah, thanks for making that point, because that's, I was hoping to say that before Sally so rudely cut us all off at the end of our half hour. I think this is a really great opportunity.
It wasn't me, it was Arnie. I'll blame it on him. Sorry. And I'm going to cut you off actually right there too. Thank you. That's a good report. We're going to move on to John, but I think David might be reporting for that. So either John or David, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, during the CPFA breakout, we talked a lot about what is CPFA, introducing it. John shared the CPFA website where anyone can go and see all of the articles, the information that we have. In our 20 years of advocacy, there are articles and surveys that were done on COVID, impact on part-time faculty, retirement issues, workload, the 67%. There was a question on that. One faculty member asked how the 67% was being calculated on your college and in your department, because there are faculty, librarians, counselors, and the 67% seems to calculate out differently in the same groups. So that was one of the questions, exactly how is your college calculating this for the part-time workload? We also have articles on the Vancouver model and their two-tier system, and one article on where does the money go, which is a great way to see where your college's budget goes. And as we know, most of it doesn't come to part-time faculty. Our CPFA journal, which comes out twice a year, is now going to be online, and past issues are available on the website. But from now on, we will have an online issue for everyone and a limited quantity of the printed. So that's a great source of information and articles. There's the El Chorro list, and all members of CPFA are on the El Chorro, which seems to be one of the best conversations in the state among part-time faculty for sharing ideas, asking questions. All of these issues we're discussing today at some point pop up on the El Chorro listserv. So we're just saying, if all part-time faculty were members of CPFA, we would be one of the biggest voices in the state, and I bet we could get parity through. So join CPFA, and there you go.
Great, thank you. And look, I think John put a link in chat too. So you can, if you're not sure about
Yeah.
CPFA, look in the chat.
There we go.
Thanks, David. And Jeff Michels, CCCI, and I think it might be Raymond that's reporting out, but whoever is going to do that, you're up.
I took notes. I don't mind, Ray, if you want to do it.
No, you go ahead, Jeff, because you talk louder and faster.
Well, so we spent a little bit of time talking about whether we're making progress 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards. Will we achieve any progress in our lifetimes? And then we kind of moved on to talking a little bit about not just parity, and we agree with the idea that parity is probably a way to get at more full-time jobs as well, but really the need for full service faculty and for the professionalization of part-time faculty so that there are, not just benefits and fair pay, but the kind of support, whether that's sabbaticals, access to curricular conversations and departments, changing the structural prejudice against part-time faculty, really analogous. There's a lot of conversations going on these days about white supremacy and systemic racism, and those are valid and have their place. But obviously, our system is really clearly structurally prejudiced against part-time faculty. And the ones who suffer from that are the students, which led us to really talking about the politics of getting the students more involved and trying to align ourselves with student voices and students and parents who really should be demanding full service faculty. And one of the problems, if it's a problem, is that you part-time faculty are so good at your jobs that you are serving the students. We are serving the students despite all of these tremendous barriers, so that part-time faculty often are working many, many uncompensated hours over and above in order to be accessible to their students. And I think if you ask students, how they feel, and if they feel like their part-time faculty are holding them back, they not even know who are part-time faculty and who are full-time faculty, which led us to the idea that maybe we should dye all the part-time faculty purple as a way of identifying them. I don't know whether that would be practical, but we were just brainstorming. But really identifying for students what some of the barriers are that are created by being part-time faculty and trying to engage that alliance with the students. And then we also talked about the need to align with full-time faculty and the frustration that full-time faculty often feel like their power is being threatened when part-timers are empowered. So that if I allow my part-timers to take sabbaticals, I get fewer sabbaticals. If I pay my part-timers more, I get paid less. If I give my part-timers more authority over curriculum, I have less authority over curriculum. And that bridge to the alliance with full-time faculty has often been a challenge. And I think it's one of the things that these kinds of meetings and coalition building is really important, because we know that if we could get the students on the one side and the full-time faculty as well, we would change the system. So while I don't disagree with David Milroy that if part-time faculty could somehow organize into one statewide organization, that's a very strong voice. I also think that there are a lot of overlapping interests and that collaboration with students and faculty are important. And so we talked quite a bit about that and about how could we create those partnerships and really tell the story of where students are losing out because of this 2-tier system.
Jeff, I am so impressed. That was 3 minutes and 5 seconds. I can't believe, do you have a timer on? I don't know what's going on with you, but you're doing really well.
Well, if coming in on time was the only measure of success, I would be very successful.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have Kristie and then John after that. So approximately 3 minutes, but I do have my timer on. So go ahead, Kristie, or whoever. I think it was maybe Evan or Ashley might be reporting. So it's up to you,
so
Kristie.
Thanks, Sally. So I did take some notes, but I think Kristie will be reporting out. And Kristie, I can help out if you need to, but you did a great job. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you, Evan. We did talk about some main issues. One of the things that we spoke about was sort of the idea that, when you're in a union that is a wall-to-wall, and again, that's full-time and part-time representation, you also have to take into account that the part-time faculty that you represent are not one body that all have the same priorities and all have the same issues. So whether that person, sometimes age is a factor, seniority is a factor, whether that person wants a full-time job or already has a full-time job in another industry is a factor. How do you make legislation that helps everyone? And how do you make legislation that isn't helping some but hurting others? And so that was one of the issues, was sort of the wide breadth that, that part-timers are not they're not a body that can be classified with all of the same needs. The other thing that we spoke about that I think that Larry brought up that I thought was really important is how COVID is going to affect our part-time faculty. And I think we see that boulder coming down the hill, right? And actually CPFA has already initiated surveys to that end to discuss how, when enrollments go down, as some have been going down and some will be going down because of students who don't want to work in an online environment or are having a difficult time, who's losing those classes? The full-timers are not losing those classes. The part-timers are losing those classes. And that, we may not even realize the full extent to how this is going to affect part-time faculty this semester or next semester. We're going to have to look at it and follow follow what's happening to our part-time faculty across the state over maybe the next year and a half, 2 years. And when it does come back, do all those people get their jobs back magically? We have to make sure that we advocate for part-time job security. And we did talk a little bit about abolishing the entire two-tier system, but then we ran out of time. We had to come back. So we'll solve that one next time.
Evan, did you want to add anything, or did she cover it?
That was perfect. It was,
okay.
And I appreciated being part of the conversation. It was a really great conversation. So thanks for having me be there, Kristie. Great job.
Thanks so much, Evan.
All right, so John, or is it Dana? I'm not sure.
I think Dana is going to report out, right?
Okay,
Scry?
great. Okay.
John, if I miss anything, or Jeff, anyone who else was in there, please let me know. I'm going to read from my notes here. So we had Frank Costco in our room, who is going to be speaking tomorrow about the Vancouver model. So I won't go too much into that, but we did really stress that. And John made a point that we really need to buckle down and do some really good research and studying about what is the best ratio and what's going to work best now that we are struggling through COVID and seeing this drop off in the amount of part-time faculty positions available and how many people are losing their jobs. We had one gentleman in the chat who teaches at, and please correct me, Rick, if I get this wrong, I think at SF City College, and 1/3 of part-timers have lost their jobs. That's 250 part-time faculty members, and it will get worse. And so what can we do for job security for people, and full-timers are also losing their jobs, but predominantly it's impacting part-timers at a different ratio. And also with Prop 15 likely not going through, we need that second stimulus package. We need to make sure that, more funding is going to come in, but also we're struggling with something that some people have brought up is, let me read my notes here, is clearly parity pay, but then also access to benefits. So people who are slipping in their enrollment numbers and therefore losing classes, they're also losing their benefits as well. So speaking to unions about that, but then also class sizes. So we're getting pitted adjunct against adjunct when we are offered a class where our cap has gone from, let's say, 40 in person to now 80 online. Not only is that an issue with pedagogy and being able to be accessible to all 80 of those students, but then it removes other classes from other adjuncts, and adjuncts are losing their jobs for reasons such as that as well. So we talked a lot about those different things and just how to basically figure out how we can best work with full-time faculty and work with our unions to make sure that we don't continue losing our jobs, but then to also get proper funding and to not couple the 75-25% with the budget. And someone was calling that a red herring, which it is, and realizing that we can still have a proper ratio, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with funding or get knocked down because we think we don't have funding for it. There is a way to do it, and we need to come together and really figure that out, how to make that happen for us. So that's what we discussed. John, if I missed anything, let me know.
I think that was good. Are we under 3 minutes?
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Oh, well,
approximately.
I just want to say that I really love the Dieffenbachia at Dana's house because I love this, my favorite house plants. But yeah, I'll stop.
No.
So before I go to the couple people that have physically have their hands up, and we'll do that in a moment because we actually have a couple minutes here. But so thank you for reporting out for everybody and for sharing that. That was there's so much that we can be covering, and it's a little. Oh, there goes my timer. There is. We have plenty of time a little bit later today, again at 4 o'clock, if we want to rehash these issues. And those of you that have said things in the chat during our break, I encourage you guys to read some of the chat stuff. It's pretty interesting in there. Dr. I want to say William Reinhardt, am I saying that right? If you have something quick to say, go ahead and unmute yourself first. Remember to unmute yourself.
Did. Okay. Yeah, Dana, just to add to you what we've done in the Emeritus Division in Saddleback, would you believe it? We've gone to 100 cap.
That's disgusting is what that is.
It is absolutely disgusting, and it's been pushed, and they say it's okay, and that's affecting part-time people big time.
Yeah. That's not
Oh
good.
man, these are all really important issues, and there's a thread that you've all seen throughout this here, and part of it has to do with power, and part of it has to do with bringing in people who have power and coalescing, whether it's students, other full-time faculty, whoever we can, because it's really hard to move forward when you don't have power.
Right.
But let me see here. Okay, so I don't see any physical hands or the little yellow hands up. Not that I want to encourage it right now because we're running on time, which is pretty darn good. So what we'll do next, because I'm sure you just love sitting here for so long, you are, as a PE teacher, I'm requiring you to get up and move around and use your body a little bit, stretch, however. And we have about 10 minutes. Let's see, it's just about 3 now. We will, let's see, 2:50. Oh, we went over time actually. So 3, yeah, I guess we're running late. I thought we had a little 10-minute break here, but we will still take a 10-minute break.
If I leave, can I get back in?
If you leave the meeting completely, yes, you will. We'll be able to get you out from the waiting room. That's a good question. But what I would suggest is if you don't have to leave, just go off video and make sure you're on mute too.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yeah. So again, thank you. We're going to come back for fiscal focus, present and future, overview and updates on retirement and unemployment, and have a little break. We'll still give you that about 8 minutes or so. We'll go till at 3:10. We'll reconvene. And you can hang around and chat with each other too. That's fine too.
I just have a quick question, Sally, and
Sure.
where are these breakout sessions that you plan to record going to be? Are they going to be on FACCC's website or?
Thanks for asking that. Yeah, I was going to mention it again at the end. We will send it out to anybody who has been a participant because we have your emails. So we will just send it out to all. As far as I know, I don't see Lydia here. I would ask her, but we're planning on.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Yes, we will email them on Monday.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you again. If you want to sit and chat with each other, that's fine. But I encourage you to get up and
Sally, do we get extra credit points if we stand up and exercise on screen? Will you pay for a membership in the new adjunct?
I don't know about that, but in fact, I don't really want to stand up because my husband said, "Oh, you look nice from the waist up," because I have these ugly sweats on from here
I
down.
do too. I have my scrubs from last night at work still on the bottom.
So I'm going to turn off my video and get up.
Hey,
See you in
Sally.
about 8 minutes or so.
Hey, Sally.
Yes.
Can I say something right now about the thing I didn't get to say what I said was going to be really unpopular. I got up to it but stopped. So let me say something and then I'll take the barrage of criticism later. But in terms of the full-time hires issue, the thing I really wanted to get at is we've tried the same strategy for 40 years or whatever. Nothing has worked. And I question whether the jobs are ever coming back. You know, I watched Trump talk to steel workers about bringing the jobs back. We roll our eyes. We know those jobs aren't coming back. And then I go to a room full of academics talking about how we're going to get all these full-time hires. I roll my eyes the same way because I don't see the jobs ever coming back. Now, this is where you get angry with me, but I'm just saying, if you look at this dispassionately and you look at this objectively, you look at the facts and the statistics, we're in stasis. The system is quite comfortable where it's at. And I don't see any reason to believe that anything we do will bring these jobs back. So I'm suggesting maybe that goal is not the place to focus. Now, I know that a lot of people don't like what I just said, so I'll shut up now, but I don't see the jobs coming back ever. Somebody could prove me, if somebody could prove me wrong, I would be really happy, because I think it would be great.
We got 50 million in the budget just 2 years ago for full-time positions. Not every district used them for full-time positions, but it was recognition on the part of the legislature and a fairly substantial investment in more full-time hires.
I mean, statistically, I don't see any changes. If you look at the system as a whole and you go back 40, 50 years, I don't see any changes.
I don't disagree with that.
In fact, it's really even hard to get that data from the chancellor's office. They kind of bury it. I wonder why. Maybe because the #1 goal has never been met.
I don't disagree with that either, but it is just a financial question. It just takes money.
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't see the jobs coming back, and I don't see why we keep thinking every year that this is going to be the year that we get the funding that's going to make the jobs come back, because I've heard that for so many years. And yeah, you get little blips of funding and you get little blips of hiring, but then it evens out again. And overall, nothing really changes. So I don't want to be, I know I'm a Donnie Downer, but I mean, if you just look at it objectively and you look at the numbers and let's say it's some other job loss in some other field that you're not involved with, you would probably come to the conclusion that maybe the jobs aren't coming back. And I'm just putting that out there as maybe we really need to rethink this whole thing, because everything we do has failed miserably. And I don't see any critical analysis of the strategy and the goal. I see none. I don't see the research being done. I see nothing. We just keep banging the heads the same way. This is the year we're going to get the money. It never happens. So,
John,
anyway.
can I just quickly say something too? Because in my district, we had 40 full-time openings that were in place when we had to go off campus, and every one of them got canceled. And we've been told on the faculty senate that it'll probably be 5 years before we hire another full-time person. And that's just in my district because of money. So COVID.
What district is that?
Los Rios.
Wow.
So yeah, because I waited for years for psychology full-time openings to happen, and I had all my stuff put together and they canceled them. 40 openings. So 5 years. Pardon me?
I think just tell Scott to jump in. We're on break.
I don't want to. One quick thing about how many classes or how many of those new hires got canceled. One of the things that I have noticed from people making comments is that on-campus classes, we have caps of 45 students. The online are putting in twice that many into their classes. And so that eliminates people.
That is
I made this point in our breakout, and it was reiterated, but I want to push it just a little bit, because it goes exactly to what John and everybody else is saying and what Jeffrey's saying too. And that is, we don't seem to be able to separate this issue, which is really all about funding, right? It's all about funding, right? We need a little money to hire more full-timers. You don't need money to hire more full-timers. You need to hire more full-timers at the current rate. And the current rate is the average pay per class. Would I take a full-time job making the same money I'm making now so that I don't have to travel between 3 different districts to cobble together a living? Of course I would. We've got to separate this red herring. We can't let them shut us down by saying we can't do it because there's not enough money. You don't need money to give me tenure. You just need to be willing to do it without tripling my pay. And I will accept that. Now, does it make me happy to do that continue to be exploited on the salary front? Of course not. But if I'm in the same bucket now, if the two-tier system goes away except for pay, now I'm on an equal playing field with all of my contemporaries, and we can start really talking about that. what I'm proposing is not easy, but I think it's honest. And I'd like us to think about that.
I think you also need to get your unions to clearly articulate that with the new COVID issue and everybody going online, this whole ridiculousness of saying what used to be 45 students in a class is now 90 students in a class is obscene, not only ridiculous. I don't know, in our college district or when I was teaching online, I taught online for 16 years, fully online. My class size is the exact same class size as if I were doing it face-to-face, because online teaching is just as much, if not more work. You can't let your unions let those contracts be exploited. Online is the same as face-to-face and require it. And then you wouldn't lose all these courses that you're saying people are taking because they're taking double the amount of students for the same amount of pay. You have to hold the contract to clearly that online and face-to-face are the same, period.
But what if a part-time faculty member is only offered a class where there's 80 students, and if they don't take it, it just goes to the next full-time or part-time faculty who will take it?
No. You don't allow them to pit part-timers against each other. The union has got to get some backbone and say courses will not be offered other than the normal course size of the course for that particular whatever the discipline is. So if their maximum class size for philosophy is 45, I don't give a damn if it's 45 face-to-face or 45 online. You make the union stand up to the administration to obey the contract. And you don't pit people against each other that way.
If I could say something really quickly, I just at our local, once we saw what was coming down the pike, I actually we already had in our contract that that online classes and face-to-face classes need to be at the exact amount. We put that in our contract. I actually lobbied for the online classes to be at 20% less capacity, because it is more work. It is more front loading. And also it would save part-time jobs, because if you can get 20% less in each class, you have enough at the end for another class. They shot it down and I fought it for a while, but I'm bringing it back again.
The only reason I would not make a big deal about that is that online courses typically have higher attrition. And so if you start with the same amount, you're going to have higher attrition, so that you're going to get down to the number you're going to want to teach online anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's I'd like to speak. So there's two issues here, one of which is the size of the class, and the other one is the pay for the class. So one thing that happened in our district was, I was saying, they limited the class sizes, but there is a little carve out for people, adjuncts that want, or not adjuncts, anybody that wants to teach over that, and they get a little bit extra for those overages, which is not pedagogically sound, unless the way seniority works in our district is you're allowed one assignment. So this way, an adjunct actually gets 1.5 assignments if they take this larger class size, okay? Which, if you think about it, if they were teaching 2 classes, that would be allowed, right? They could have 2 classes and you wouldn't say it wasn't pedagogically sound, right? So they're allowed to take 1.5 and get paid 1.5. They're allowed to take twice as many students and get paid 1.5, which is not right. So that was what I was trying to fight, but it never gained traction. But again, if you think about it, if you're teaching 80 students, it's like teaching 2 classes of 40 students.
Of course.
One way
I need to interrupt here, sorry, because we have a schedule and some people are coming in at 3 and we're already a little bit late. But I like the discussion, and we can continue this at about 4:10.